This is Mystery Babylon Unveiled, Lucifer the Queen of Heaven, Chapter 15, The Queen Bee. From the images of beehives and Freemasonic art to the fountain of the bees in Rome, a stone image of bees on the clamshell of Venus, even to the popes wearing a crown that looks like a bee's abdomen with a stinger on top. All of this bee symbolism begs the question, who is the Queen Bee? On the page titled Goddess as Queen Bee, Artemis of Ephesus, from Flowery Moon, it says, the bee and the goddess have been intertwined through time and in multiple cultures. The honeycomb is seen in architecture in her city of Ephesus, city of the bee. Her priestesses were called Melissa, a name that means bee. The bee represents the magic of creation, transformation, divine perfection, and healing. Artemis as Queen Bee is the source of all these. The Lost Art of Resurrection's author, Freddie Silva, gives more insight on the connection between the goddess and bees, saying, the Greek historian Porphyry describes how in the temples presided by Artemis, Demeter, or Cybele, the priestesses in attendance were called Melissa, the bees. I'm going to scroll down here. And that this insect came to be associated with the concept of periodic regeneration by the manner in which the Melissa inherited their title from Greek mythology. Melissa was one of a group of bee nymphs whose duty was to teach civilizing behaviors and bring men out of their state of ignorance. Page 95. We have here a plaque showing what is presumed to be a bee goddess from the British Museum. Next page. The Queen Bee is the goddess, and the bees represent her priesthood. Silva goes on to say the following about the Queen Bee. Ancient societies believed that wisdom emanated from an other world presided predominantly by a female deity, a mother goddess or divine virgin who provided hotspots across the earth where one is perfectly capable of accessing her directly. This exalted maiden represents the creative source. She is the personification of the primeval force. In the Celtic world, such qualities are bestowed upon the goddess Breed or Bride or Bridget. Her name is the root of bride. 124 through 125. Let's scroll down here. God, or the force, is manifested in the material world by the goddess. Since bees are a symbol of her priesthood, that must mean that the beehive symbolizes her temple. Is that why architects make buildings with dome-shaped roofs? That's part of it, no doubt. The dome also represents her womb. St. Peter's Basilica has a beehive-shaped dome for the womb of the goddess, the Holy of Holies, where Catholic faithful partake in the sacrifice of her Son, the Eucharist. Here is an aerial view of St. Peter's Basilica Square with lines drawn by me to emphasize that it represents a woman's body. I'm trying not to get into much commentary, but you can imagine the keyhole where the phallus of the sun god goes, or it is inserted, the keyhole, and then you have the dome, which represents the space of the divine feminine abode, the womb. Their children are baptized with the waters of the womb by priests using a seashell to pour the water. Then the people exit the building and pass through the birth canal leading to the keyhole, where the phallus of the sun god, the obelisk, penetrates the earth. This obelisk is in St. Peter's Square. Remember, the square is a symbol for the divine feminine, representing the female, next page, reproductive system, or yoni. This process of passing through a model of the female reproductive system is how they are purified and born again. Freemasonic art shows a beehive with the words, "Holiness to the Lord," on it. You will find that beehive on the doorknob of the Salt Lake Mormon Temple as well. And in case you have any doubt that they serve the goddess, you can find Venus's shell on it too. And here is the image of the beehive on Masonic art. You will find it on some of those, and you have it here on the doorknob of the Salt Lake Mormon Temple, and there is the seashell of Venus on it as well. So this, I believe, is the beehive is the representation of the goddess's temple. You can also find seashells above doors and shelves in the Oval Office. The oval itself is symbolic of the ovum, which means egg. The symbols of the divine feminine typically all represent either the womb or the vagina. The name Vesica Piscis is also used. Barbara G. Walker in the Women's Encyclopedia of Myths and Secrets reveals that the word cunt, which has become vulgar and forbidden to say, comes from the name of a goddess who was the embodiment of the yoni. So under cunt, derivative of the Oriental great goddess as Kunti or Kunti or Kunda, the yoni of the universe. Page 197. In the goddess Kunda, we have the root for Kundalini, also known as Shakti. As Walker describes Kundalini, tantric image of the female serpent coiled in the lowest chakra of the human body, and the pelvis. An aim of tantric yoga was to realize Kundalini by certain exercises and meditations, such as Yoni Mudra or Yoni hand signs. 517, and we covered those in previous chapters. In America, Nation of the Goddess, Alan Butler tells us what yoni symbols are typically most significant. There is no more potent symbolism for either the goddess or the sacred feminine generally than the diamond in the Vesica Piscis. 287. Next page. So in this figure here we have the symbols representing the divine feminine. We have the diamond shapes, the inverted or down pointed triangle, the Vesica Piscis that are two circles overlapping, a form of Yoni Mudra, which is what most people call the OK or the 666 hand sign, as covered in previous chapters. Forming a ring with any of your fingers creates the Yoni hand sign. You can do a combination of the devil horns with the Yoni Mudra or any variation, but touching the finger to the thumb creates the Yoni, the whole, the Yoni Mudra, the divine feminine symbol. And here's another Yoni hand sign, and you have the mandorla shape, which is the sort of oval or almond shape, where you will often see the Christ figure inside the womb or inside the passage, inside the divine feminine. And here you have the Ordo Templi, I'm sorry, I forgot the name right now, but you have multiple divine feminine symbols inside of that divine feminine symbol. The diamond, the downward pointed triangle, the Vesica Piscis, the Yoni Mudra, hand signs, and mandorla, all of these represent the divine feminine. Not pictured above but also included are the square and the grail, the chalice. What's that Vesica Piscis doing on the MasterCard, by the way? That tells you who their master is. That's what. Even the so-called 666 hand sign is a Yoni Mudra. According to the Sign Language of the Mysteries by J.S.M. Ward, meeting the fingers with the thumb, which creates a ring, is a sign of the Vesica Piscis. It can be combined with other signs such as the sign of the horns on page 159 through 160. Recall all the times that you've seen the OK sign, OK hand sign, placed over some celebrity's eye, combining the eye and the womb symbolism together. Bonus points if you saw them stick out their tongue too. As to what the yoni hand sign is used to signal, Ward says, I'm going to scroll down here, the initiate is informed that he is a brother of every other member of the Hung Lodge because by the ceremony he has been reborn from the same womb, and they speak of their lodge as their mother, just as the European might speak of his mother city. From page 161. The mysteries in the lodges where initiates take part in the mysteries are metaphorical wombs. James G. Frazier, author of The Golden Bow or Golden Bow, describes the process involving a giant symbol of the yoni by which two particular men had to be born again. Two Hindu ambassadors who had been sent by England by a native prince and had returned to India were considered to have so polluted themselves by contact with strangers that nothing but being born again, scrolling to the next page, could restore them to purity. For the purpose of regeneration, it is directed to make an image of pure gold of the female power of nature, in the shape of either a woman or of a cow. In this statue, the person to be regenerated is enclosed and dragged through the usual channel. As a statue of pure gold and of proper dimensions would be too expensive, it is sufficient to make an image of the sacred yoni through which the person to be regenerated is to pass. Such an image of pure gold was made at the prince's command, and his ambassadors were born again by being dragged through it. Page 157 through 158. Scrolling down. In relation to being born again, the spiral represents rebirth. You can find it on the belly of images of goddesses, over their womb specifically. The labyrinth similarly represents the place where rebirth happens. Emerging from the labyrinth, like rising from the grave, is being reborn, rising as a higher superior being. It's the hero's journey. The spiral appears in the title of the movie Home, a movie about the search for a missing mother named Lucy. It appears in the title of the film Moana, a film about a young ocean goddess on a journey to find the missing supreme goddess Tahiti and find herself while she's at it. You have here an image of a spiral goddess. The spiral goddesses bear the spiral on their bellies. Again, the spiral represents death and rebirth, and the womb is a tomb. This is a symbol of the divine feminine. Looking at some of her other symbols, the apple is worthy of discussion. Let's call to mind the Applebee's logo. There are two symbols combined in that name. But what does the apple have to do with the goddess? In one way, it's because the apple is connected to the serpent, since it's popularly looked at as the forbidden fruit that the serpent tempted Eve to eat. But how did the apple become synonymous with the knowledge of good and evil? The Bible doesn't say what the forbidden fruit was. It definitely doesn't say that there is anything wrong with eating apples. Believe it or not, the answer to that also points to the goddess Venus, or Aphrodite, who often holds a golden apple in her hand because it was a prize given to her for winning a beauty contest. The apple is also found in a myth about the golden apples of the garden of the Hesperide nymphs. Their name comes from Hesperus, which is given to Venus as the evening star. So it seems all roads lead to Venus. This image is of Venus holding an apple, Venus of Arles by Francis Girardin from 1651. You see she is holding the apple in her hand. I believe I have already shown in a previous chapter another image of Venus holding an apple in her hand. Scrolling to the next page. The Holy Grail is a reference to the womb. The chalice and the cup, like the bowl, represents that which contains the holy blood or seed. Think about the rose bowl. The square, both the four-sided shape and the square tool, are references to the womb as well. The square tool resembles a V shape. The V shape is also called a chevron. It is symbolic of the chalice, which represents the womb. In this image, we have the Masonic apron right there. The Masonic apron is a square and has square angles. You see the square shape, and it has the square angles. They are not always square shape, but it will usually always have the square angle. The V in the Victoria's Secret logo is also a square. The S might be for serpent. It sure is curved like a serpent. Victoria is a goddess, and she is called Nike. She's also called Nike. The letter V itself is also a symbol of the divine feminine. V is the Roman numeral for 5. The pentagram has 5 points. Because of the letter's shape, V also represents the chalice or grail. Having said that, the sigil of Lucifer is shaped like a downward pointed triangle or chalice. The whole sigil is a yoni symbol. As Dion Fortune explains, in the mystical Kabbalah, cups are essentially the female force, for the cup or chalice is one of the symbols of Binah and is intimately allied with the yoni in esoteric symbolism. Page 147. The sigil of Lucifer is filled with divine feminine symbolism and overall represents the womb. It has an X for the female chromosome, that is my speculation, and it also resembles a rose. The rose is sacred to Venus as a symbol of love and passion, and because the star point cycle of Venus over the course of 8 years makes a rose pattern. I've seen this pattern referred to as the kiss of Venus. Just like in the past with Venus, in these modern times, roses are given to the Virgin Mary or Our Lady. This pattern here on the left is called the kiss of Venus, or as I have seen it called, and you see the 5-petaled rose pattern in the middle, and you have a rose on the right. So when you see a rose, that is a symbol for Venus. As mentioned already, the 5-pointed star, often seen in Masonic structures and art, is referred to by the Masons as the blazing star. It is linked to both Venus and Sirius. Not only does Venus make a rose pattern over the course of an 8-year cycle, but it makes a 5-pointed star as well. The goddess Sabdet, who is identified with Isis, wears a 5-pointed star on her head. She is the embodiment of the star Sirius. In Hidden Secrets of the Eastern Star, Dr. Kathy Burns comments, "It's interesting to note that Venus also became the goddess of the dog star Sirius," page 54. In this figure, we have the pentagram of Venus on the left. Venus makes this pentagram over the course of 8 years, and Sabdet on the right, who is also identified with Sirius, with the 5-pointed star on her head. If you have ever wondered why so many countries in the West use the colors red, white, and blue in their flags, it's possibly because Sirius primarily flashes the colors red, white, and blue. Sirius is also called the rainbow star because a whole spectrum of colors can be observed from the star through a telescope. If you have ever seen the star through a telescope, you can search for such videos on YouTube as I have. You will notice that there appears to be a hole in Sirius. The star looks very much like the iris of an eye. The rainbow star Sirius, having the appearance of an eye, is interesting because the goddess of the rainbow happens to be named Iris, and Iris spelled backwards is Siri. Apple iPhone users would recognize that name. Considering these many symbols that I've discussed here, how many do we see all around us and how often? It appears much more than you realize. You might start to recognize them from now on. The goddess appears on many types of currency around the world, but since I live in America, I'm going to use this country's money as an example. I found several examples of United States coins that have goddesses featured on them, either holding the torch of enlightenment or the sprig of regeneration, or even both. As seen often on the silver dollar is the name of the goddess Liberty, or the goddess herself. While those coins may say, "In God we trust," you can't allow those flattering words to deceive you. A tree is known by its fruits, so look at what they show you. They show you who their god or goddess truly is. So these are various coins featuring the goddess of liberty or Libertas. "In God we trust" is printed on some of them. Now I'm not sure if all of these coins went into print or not, but they do demonstrate the point that I was making, the sprig of regeneration and the torch of liberty. The Mother of Exiles, also known as the Statue of Liberty, stands on Liberty Island in New York Harbor. It's quite clearly the goddess Libertas. By her title, Mother of Exiles, she is the mother of those who have been cast out of their, scrolling down, first estate. This perhaps being a reference to fallen angels. The official name for this idol is the Statue of Liberty Enlightening the World. It is made of copper, which is a metal associated with the planet Venus. Held like a child in her left arm is a tablet with the date of the Declaration of Independence on it. America and all its inhabitants are her children. Stuart Best, in his film Why America is Babylon, decoded the Roman numerals MDCCLXXVI, which are also on the tablet. Not only does it mean 1776, but it also means 666 after it is decoded. The tablet in the goddess's left arm can also be interpreted as the beast or the Antichrist. It's the mother goddess and her son, S-U-N again. And Libertas' right arm is held up the torch. She is the light bearer, and from her head shines forth the rays of enlightenment. While the Statue of Liberty may be the most famous symbol of America, she's not called the Spirit of America or the Goddess of America. Those titles are given to Columbia. Columbia comes from Columba, meaning a dove. The dove is another one of her symbols. Now people use it as a symbol for the Holy Spirit. But the Most High didn't tell anyone to do that. He said not to make any image in any likeness of him. And here is a Roman coin with Venus on the front and her dove on the back. And here we have, of course, the Statue of Liberty enlightening the world. And in this image we have the Goddess of Freedom. She's literally called the Goddess of Freedom, which stands on top of the Capitol building in the District of Columbia. Scrolling down, next page. The capital of the United States is the District of Columbia, formerly the Territory of Columbia. The reverence for the Divine Feminine goes beyond the name here. The entire district is shaped like a diamond or square. The Potomac River flows through this giant symbol of the Yoni. The District of Columbia is surrounded by Maryland on one side and Virginia on the other. Being on the East Coast, this represents the place where the sun is born. So here we have an image, aerial or satellite footage of, or satellite image of the District of Columbia. You see the outline here. I highlighted it in white to make it easier to see, and the Potomac River flowing through it. You have Maryland on one side and Virginia on the other. Inside the District of Columbia is the Pentagon building, which is related to the pentagram, of course. North of the Pentagon is the White House, where the Oval Office is. It's important that we know the Oval Office, or it's important that we know that the office is oval shaped because it represents the egg, meaning the seat of power is in the goddess's womb. The White House is located at the southern point of the inverted pentagram that's formed by the street layout. Here we have an image of a satellite image above the White House, and you see the White House is located at the tip of the pentagram that is made by the street layout. To the east, also formed by the street planning, we see a pyramid. Capitol Hill is located just above the capstone of the pyramid. There is an oval in there representing the eye of the capstone. Remember who that eye on the pedestal of the pyramid represents. It's that woman called wickedness. Perched on that capstone is her owl, and inside the owl is the Capitol building. You will find the woman who is represented by both the eye symbol and the owl standing on top of the Capitol building. She's called the goddess of freedom. The word free links back to the Old Norse goddess Freya, and liberty to the goddess Libertas. Ironically, as 2 Peter 2:19 says, while they promise them liberty, they themselves are the servants of corruption. And here we have an image of the street layout. You have the Capitol building inside the goddess's owl at the top of the pyramid. You have the pyramid here. There's the capstone. And then here, this oval here for the eye. And you have the Capitol building here at the tip of the capstone, where the goddess sits on top of the dome and inside her owl. Keeping in mind all the divine feminine symbolism designed into Washington, D.C., I will now inform you that this location is the center of a giant sigil of Lucifer that spans across nearly a third of the country. The Seal of Liberty author has shown how multiple locations across America, all named Cedar Point, were aligned so that when lines are drawn between them, they form the sigil of Lucifer. In the video titled Sigil of Lucifer, Scottish Rite's Symbol of Liberty, the Seal of Liberty author demonstrates that this could only have been possible with dedicated planning, ruling out any chances of it all being a coincidence. Here is an image, a screenshot from the video, Sigil of Lucifer, Scottish Rite's Symbol of Liberty, and you have 3 points at the corners and 3 points at the corners, all named Cedar Point, and then you have Washington, D.C. and the center. And we've already seen how much divine feminine symbolism is in Washington, D.C. This is the sigil of Lucifer on the United States. The architects of this country didn't do anything without taking extreme care to align their actions with the stars of heaven. Another example of that, on Wednesday, September 18, 1793, the cornerstone was laid for the Capitol building. Wednesdays are the day of the week most associated with the sign of Virgo. Alan Butler, author of City of the Goddess, gives more insight on what was happening in the sky that day. Scrolling down. If the goddess of freedom had already been present on that Wednesday, September 18, 1793, at 3:30 a.m., the near full moon was about to set, leaving Venus in the east for 2 hours as the brightest and most significant object in that early autumn morning sky, and the sun firmly positioned in the sign of Virgo. From page 13. There is another striking symbol called the Auspis Maria. We'll just scroll down so that we can get an image of that. It is a letter M overlaying a letter A. In some cases, it is highly stylized, making it difficult to distinguish the letters. So this is an image that I made by overlaying the letter M with the letter A to make the Auspis Maria. It's not perfect but it demonstrates the point well enough. Auspis Maria is a Latin phrase meaning under the protection of Mary. It's another goddess protection symbol, like the sign of the horns in the Hamsa hand. If you look very closely at it to examine its shape, you can see a diamond shape in the middle for the divine feminine. You may be able to see a resemblance to the square and compass. And if you call to mind the sigil of Lucifer, you may notice that at the very bottom of the sigil, where the V is, resembles the Auspis Maria. So in this image we have the Auspis Maria, which is at the top of this banner, and it seems very similar, at least to me, to the V or the shape at the bottom of the sigil of Lucifer. You have the diamond shape there. You can even perceive two pillars at each end, which we will get into later. The Roman numerals, I want to scroll back up. The Roman numerals 911 or 4911 IXXI form the shape of the Auspis Maria. That is surely by design, because on September 11th, the sun is in the constellation of Virgo, also known as the Celestial Virgin and the Queen of Heaven. In the Roman numerals IXXI, we can also see a representation of 101. The female double X chromosomes, or double crosses, form the sacred feminine diamond shape. In the Dos Equis logo, there appears to be a sun god in the diamond, perhaps being born from within it. To the next page. Here we have, in this image, the female double X's found in the Auspis Maria, and the logos resemble the shape of the square and compass. So this XX becomes a square and compass, and it also forms a sacred feminine diamond shape. And as I mentioned, the sun god appears to be within that sacred feminine diamond shape. Turning our attention to the goddess's owl again, we find it in many other places, such as logos, and as a symbol of the Illuminati. It stands as a giant stone image at Bohemian Grove, where influential men go to perform rituals and worship great nature, which we know is the great whore of Babylon. Out there in the grove, they reject the Most High Yah, referring to him as dull care, in a ceremony called the cremation of care. The goddess was also found on the Georgia Guidestones under the name Nature, before the Guidestones were unceremoniously toppled in 2022. Here's the image of the owl from the Bohemian Club logo. And that is, of course, for that woman wickedness. The first commandment on the Georgia Guidestones was maintain humanity under 500 million in perpetual balance with nature. The 10th and final commandment was be not a cancer on the earth. Leave room for nature. Leave room for nature. Nature was mentioned 3 times. In the final commandment, the commandment to leave room for nature was written twice. When Freemasons say nature, I know they mean it with a capital N, because it is a spirit. That much is made clear when you hear them praise great nature in video footage from Bohemian Grove. They might as well call her Asherah. In modern times, we call Asherah by the names Mother Earth, Mother Nature, or Gaia. Gaia is a name that is at the center of the New Age movement. Dr. John Rogers, who wrote New Age Bible, said the New Age movement seemed to come into being during the 60s and 70s, but it is much older than that. The roots of the New Age movement can be traced to as early as 1776, when a new and revolutionary form of government was created in America. The founders of this nation designed a great seal to be the symbol of this new form of government, and on the great seal are found the words Novus Ordo Seclorum, which means a new order of the ages. page 96. Mystery Babylon is hidden in far more symbols than I could possibly hope to show you in one book. I will give you a few more examples. In a screenshot from the video for the song Mother, Meghan Trainor wears silver, the color of the moon, and sits in the sacred feminine diamond or squares. Light rays expand outward. These symbols vaguely resemble the shape of an eye as well. So you have Meghan Trainor here, the diva, which means goddess, and the divine feminine symbolism in the music video Mother 2023. And it vaguely resembles the shape of an eye. While goddess symbols are often hidden in plain sight, as with the MasterCard's Vesica Piscis, sometimes they are inverted into masculine forms for the purpose of obfuscation. I struggle with that word. The symbol for Lucius Trust, formerly known as Lucifer, I'm going to scroll down here, publishing company, is a triangle with the word lux or light designed into it. This is an inverted sigil of Lucifer. Figure 1522 here, we have the MasterCard with the Vesica Piscis on it, Vesica Piscis. And you have the Lucius Trust logo, formerly Lucifer Publishing Company. And it has light designed into it, or mean lux, which means light, and it is an inverted sigil of Lucifer. Scrolling down, I don't doubt that Lucifer will receive worship as a male, as I pointed out when discussing Allah, but her true nature as a female will eventually show itself. This is typically done in ways the uninitiated can't perceive, in religious rituals, entertainment logos, and in Masonic art. Mystery Babylon is a mystery, so the initiated must present Lucifer as a male to the outsider, and Lucius Trust, Lucifer Publishing Company, does exactly that. Here we have the Columbia Pictures logo, showing Columbia, the goddess, holding up the torch. Ishtar was the goddess of light in Babylon, and we still see the goddess bringing the light from heaven in other forms. A most notable example is in the Columbia Pictures logo, which features the goddess Columbia holding the torch of enlightenment. The model who posed for the 1992 logo held in her hand an electric lamp that resembled a torch. When we see the image of a woman holding up a light, it's not merely a creative choice being made. It's Ishtar, the goddess of light, or Lucifer, being shown to us under a different persona. This image is of, I'm trying to find the caption there, The Electric Light by Ludwig Candler from 1884. And it is a goddess holding up an electric light. I remember now that I actually forgot to show, I will come back to this because I forgot to show the image at the beginning of the book. I'm kind of breaking my formula here, but I want to show the image at the beginning too, which also features a goddess holding an electric light. This is an advertisement for the General Electric Company Society, 1892, depicting the Queen of Heaven bringing illumination and spiritual power. Of course, the lightning for enlightenment and spiritual power. Maybe I did show that image, but I don't remember showing it. All right. So that was which chapter are we on? Sorry. Yep, that was chapter 15. The next chapter is chapter 16. I am and none else beside me. Isis is the most important figure in Freemasonry. Just as with Kali, There are direct references to her in Bible prophecy. Isaiah chapter 47 is such a prophecy. In this chapter, she is called the virgin daughter of Babylon, the widow, and the Lady of Kingdoms. You will see that God is not just addressing a city in this chapter, but the spirit of Babylon that rules over this city. Starting at verse 1. Come down and sit in the dust, O virgin daughter of Babylon. Sit on the ground. There is no throne, O daughter of the Chaldeans, for thou shalt no more be called tender and delicate. That is Isaiah 47:1. Scrolling down. This first verse is a direct shot at Isis's name. When the Most High tells her, sit on the ground, there is no throne, that jumps off the page to me. Why would he say such a thing unless the subject of this prophecy has some kind of connection to a throne? Isis's name means throne. She is a personification of the throne in Egypt and wears an image of a throne on her head. One must be her offspring or seed to even sit on her lap, which is the symbol of the throne. Verse 2 says, take the millstones and grind meal. Uncover thy locks and make bare the leg. Uncover the thigh, pass over the rivers. Thy nakedness shall be uncovered. Yea, thy shame shall be seen. I will take vengeance, and I will not meet thee as a man. So that is verse 2 through 3. Here, the Most High Yah is saying that he is going to unveil her. He's going to discover all of her secret places, passing over the rivers or over the private areas, and exposing her nakedness. He's giving the image of snatching the covering off of a harlot to reveal her shame. Have you ever heard of the veil of Isis? The veil of Isis, or the veil, represent Isis's secrets, her mysteries. From Isiopolis on the veil of Isis, there are a few other ancient references to the veil of Isis. The Greco-Egyptian magical papyri refer to it on several occasions. In one, the magician invokes Isis and asks her to remove her veil in order to reveal the future and shake destiny. By revealing the mysteries beneath her veil, the magician hoped that the goddess who was worshipped as Lady of Fate and Fortune could not only predict but could change or shake destiny. The unveiling of the goddess became a symbol of the revelation of esoteric secrets, sometimes specifically the revelation of Egyptian secrets. At the Herbert Hoover National Historic Site, there is a statue of Isis that is veiled and bears a significant inscription from her temple in Sais. I will explain what that inscription is and what it means later in this chapter, because it is directly referenced by the book of Isaiah in chapter 47. Here we have an image of Isis by August Puttermans at the Herbert Hoover National Historic Site. Scrolling to the next page. The first 3 verses of this chapter are too specific to be dismissed as a coincidence. We'll see even more references to Isis as we read on. As for our Redeemer, the Lord of hosts is his name, the Holy One of Israel. Sit thou silent and get thee into darkness, O daughter of the Chaldeans, for thou shalt no more be called the Lady of Kingdoms. Isaiah 57:4 through 5. The Queen of Heaven had the most important courts in Babylon and the land of the Chaldees. The modern version of the Queen of Heaven, the Virgin Mary, is called the Lady of all Nations. Another word for nations is kingdoms. This is another reference to the goddess, confirming that this prophecy against the virgin daughter of Babylon also has a spiritual subject. Verse 6 says, I was wroth with my people. I have polluted mine inheritance, and given them into thine hand. Thou didst show them no mercy. Upon the ancient hast thou very heavily laid thy yoke, and thou sayest, I shall be a lady forever, so that thou didst not lay these things to thy heart, neither didst remember the latter end of it. Scrolling down. The Most High God Yah sent Israel into captivity in Babylon, and this goddess which ruled over Babylon laid very heavy the yoke of iron around their necks. Verse 8 reads, Therefore hear now this, thou that art given to pleasures, that dwellest carelessly, that saith in thine heart, I am, and none else beside me. I shall not sit as a widow, neither shall I know the loss of children. In Freemasonry, Isis is called the widow. The Masons are called widow's sons, or sons of the widow. Every Freemason, every president, and every king is pictured as the child sitting on Isis's lap. They are the seed of the serpent, and the serpent proclaims here that she shall not know the loss of her children. Eve has her righteous children, and Babylon has her unrighteous children. She also says in her heart, I am, and none else beside me. This is a declaration by her that she is God. Scrolling down. In Isaiah 45:5, the Most High God Yahweh says, I am the Lord, and there is none else. There is no God beside me. When the virgin daughter of Babylon says in her heart, I am, and none else beside me, Isaiah 47:8, that is a declaration of rebellion against the Most High, in the same spirit as Lucifer saying in Isaiah 14:14, I will be like the Most High. She goes on to say in Isaiah 47:8 that, she shall not sit or remain as a widow. This is yet another reference to Isis, who is called the widow. But these two things shall come to thee in a moment, in one day. The loss of children and widowhood, they shall come upon thee in their perfection for the multitude of thy sorceries, and for the great abundance of thine enchantments. God tells Isis that she will be a widow, and that she will know the loss of children, and this will be for the multitude of her sorceries. This draws a connection to Isaiah 57:3-4, where the goddess Kali is directly referenced. It reads, But draw near hither, ye sons of the sorceress, the seed of the adulterer and the whore. Against whom do ye sport yourselves? Against whom make ye a wide mouth, and draw out the tongue? Are ye not children of transgression, a seed of falsehood? Scrolling down. God calls her the sorceress, and he mentions the act of making a wide mouth and drawing out the tongue, like Kali, an act which is directed against him. He calls the fornicators involved in her worship the children of transgression, or the children of wickedness. Verse 10 in Isaiah 47 says, For thou hast trusted in thy wickedness. Thou hast said, None seeth me. Thy wisdom and thy knowledge it hath perverted thee, and thou hast said in thine heart, I am, and none else beside me. As the mystery of iniquity, in Mystery Babylon, Isis thinks that none see her. However, God has already promised to remove her veil and expose her nakedness. And then she says a second time in her heart, I am, and none else beside me. It is said twice so that we can't miss it. The Most High God wouldn't bother to include these words from the great whore in his prophetic scriptures twice if it wasn't extremely important. In the temple of Isis at Sais are inscribed the words, I, Isis, am all that has been, that is, or shall be. No mortal man hath ever me unveiled. Is that not exactly what we've been reading in Isaiah 47? She says in her heart, None seeth me, and I am, and none else beside me. This is no coincidence. The virgin daughter of Babylon is a spirit who is being directly confronted in Isaiah chapter 47. In The Lost Keys of Freemasonry, Manly P. Hall says of Freemasonry and its connection to Isis, "Enter the temple in reverence, for it is in truth the dwelling place of a great spirit, the spirit of Masonry. Masonry is an ordainer of kings." Page 90. We will fully expose that great spirit of Freemasonry before we're done here. Manly P. Hall gives a name for the spirit of Freemasonry. Freemasonry, as an institution, is Isis, the mother of the mysteries, from whose dark womb the initiates are born, and the mystery of the second or philosophic birth. Thus all adepts, by virtue of their participation in the rites, are figuratively at least the sons of Isis. As Isis is the widow seeking to restore her lord and to avenge his cruel murder, it follows that all master masons or master builders are widows' sons. Page 153. Isis is called the widow because her husband Osiris was murdered by the often antagonistic god Set. My own discernment, by the grace of the Most High, brought me to the understanding that the Egyptian god Set is also associated with the Hebrew god Yahweh, YHWH. I believe the name Set came from Adam's son Seth. Noah and Shem kept the truth of the Most High God through the flood. Then Yahweh became identified with the Egyptian god Set because of the events surrounding the Tower of Babel. This is where the Tower of Babel itself becomes the source of the myth of the death of Osiris. As we read in Genesis 11, verse 8 through 9, "So the Lord scattered them abroad from thence upon the face of all the earth, and they left off to build the city. Therefore is the name of it called Babel, because the Lord did there confound the language of all the earth, and from thence did the Lord scatter them abroad upon the face of all the earth." Genesis 11, verse 8 through 9. Yah stopped the tower from being built and scattered the builders across the earth. That story is reflected in the Egyptian myth where Set murdered the sun god Osiris and scattered his body parts across the earth. As was revealed earlier in this chapter, the Bible refers to Isis as the virgin daughter of Babylon. Therefore, Babylon represents Isis, and the builders are her husbands and also her children. Now that her metaphorical husband has been slain, Isis becomes a widow, the Black Widow, and it's her goal to regather the pieces of her husband's body and resurrect him as her child Horus. In the Egyptian myth, Isis is able to find all the pieces except for the phallus of Osiris. The phallus is the generative principle in the male. It also symbolizes the lost word in Freemasonry. Typically, the obelisk, which can also serve as a sundial, represents the phallus of the slain sun god. The goddess creates a substitute which she uses to conceive, and she rebirths her husband in the form of her son, who is, quote, the word, unquote. The broken pillar, or obelisk, represents the slain sun god and the unfinished Tower of Babel. It's Isis's mission to avenge the murder of her husband against Set. Horus, Isis's son, is the one who exacts this revenge in mythology. This can be symbolic of Babylon's son, the beast from the bottomless pit, defeating the true God Yahweh, who is the adversary in the eyes of the Egyptians. When the Luciferians speak of Satan, Yaldabaoth, or Saklas, they are referring to the true God, YHWH. He is also called the Demiurge, as mentioned earlier. Yahweh has commandments and requires his children to come out from among evildoers and be separate, because he stands against their forms of enlightenment, so that they claim that the Hebrew God is blind and ignorant. In Freemasonry, the direction of the north, where God's throne is regarded as a place of darkness where there is no light. On the Masonic tracing boards, you may notice that the directions of the north, east, south, and west are not arranged like they are on a compass. The east is where the north would be on a compass. The east is where the sun, moon, and blazing star is. The all-seeing eye is sometimes where Venus or Sirius, represented by the blazing star, would be. The north is on the left side of the board, where the west would be on a compass. Not only is the Most High's throne in the sides of the north, but as the word tells us in Malachi 3:6, Yah says, "For I am the Lord, I change not." James 1:17 says of him, "With whom is no variableness, neither shadow of turning." The North Star, Polaris, is a star that doesn't change and shows no degree of movement. There's no doubt in my mind that the North Star represents the Most High. It's both the Most North and the Most High Star. It represents the unmovable truth that we can use to navigate the world we live in, contrary to the strange woman Lucifer, whose ways are movable so that we can't know them. So on this image, we have the alma mater, so-called, the alma mater statue by Daniel Chester French, 1903, at Columbia University. And I will get into what that means later. And in this image, we have the first degree tracing board by Joshua Bowring, 1819, showing the genius of Freemasonry as a triple goddess. We will be getting a lot into the genius of Freemasonry. We have already touched on that before, and we will be very deep into explaining who that is soon. But as mentioned in this chapter, the north would be on this side of the tracing board, and Venus has replaced the North Star's position at the north side of the tracing board. They have put Lucifer in the Most High Yah's spot. Yeah, we will be discussing these goddesses more. So that was chapter 16. The next chapter would be chapter 17, wise as serpents, harmless as doves. The two pillars on either side of the door of the temple represent two opposites. These pillars are represented by various symbols all around us. Jesus Christ is the door to the kingdom of heaven and to eternal life. He stands between the two olive trees. He said himself in John 3:19, "I am the door. By me, if any man enter in, he shall be saved, and shall go in and out and find pasture." When Samson was placed between the two pillars, he brought the two opposites, the roof and the floor, together, and by his sacrifice he destroyed his enemies above and below. In the same way, when Jesus Christ was crucified between two thieves, he brought the kingdom of darkness down. As he said in John 12, verse 32, "If I be lifted up from the earth, will draw all men unto me." And in John 12:31 he said, "Now is the judgment of this world. Now shall the prince of this world be cast out." Unlike with Lucifer, however, there is no duality with Jesus Christ. 1 John 1:5 says, "This then is the message which we have heard of him, and declare unto you, that God is light, and in him is no darkness at all." Lucifer identifies herself as the whore and the Holy One. The goddess is full of duality. She is the morning and evening star, light and darkness. As the diva, Meredith Brooks sang in her song titled Bitch, I am a child, I am a mother, I am a sinner, I am a saint, I do not feel ashamed. As both the dove and the serpent are animals sacred to the goddess, she is both a devil and an angel of light, knowledge of good and evil. This is the Masonic checkerboard floor, opposites that must be embraced as being part of one whole. I learned of the place that the goddess held between the two pillars simply by observing the symbols that I was constantly being shown in artwork and in music videos. In the secret teaching of all ages, Manly P. Hall confirms what I was able to discover by the grace of the Most High. The World Virgin is sometimes shown standing between two great pillars, the Jachin and Boaz of Freemasonry, symbolizing the fact that nature attains productivity by means of polarity. As wisdom personified, Isis stands between the pillars of opposites, demonstrating that understanding is always found at the point of equilibrium and that truth is often crucified between the two thieves of apparent contradiction. Page 130. The two pillars are bridged by the goddess, the above and the below, the spirit and the material. Lucifer is the mystery religion's Jacob ladder, bridging the gap between heaven and earth. For those who believe in a Trinity, Mary has become the third person in that Trinity, becoming like the Most High, in accordance with Lucifer's I will statements in Isaiah 14. In this image we see the coronation of the Virgin, or the crowning, by Diego Velázquez from 1635 and 1636 is when he worked on it. And we have the goddess in line with the dove, another symbol of the goddess, between the two pillars. In much of the art she's in, there is a direct line between Mary and the dove. They are one and the same. Remember that the dove is a goddess symbol. Those pillars on either side of Mary can be angels, candlesticks, or even two men who are supposed to represent God the Son and God the Father. Each pillar represents the number 1. The 0 is the doorway, the yoni. The number 101 is typically used to signify something that is basic or introductory. It is the point of initiation. Caitlin Matthews, author of Sophia, Goddess of Wisdom, Bride of God, comments on the goddess identifying as a holy whore. Sophia also appears in the surprising guise of a harlot. This theme is traceable from the Sumerian epic of Gilgamesh, in which the divine barmaid of the gods, Siduri, consoles Gilgamesh and a mortal Hierodule initiates Enkidu into manhood. Right through to the medieval conflation of the Magdalene with the woman taken in adultery, this image of the harlot is perfectly reasonable in the context of gnosis, for she is a woman of initiatory knowledge. It is I who am the harlot and the holy, says the thunder, perfect voice of Sophia. The images of the whore and the Holy One are blended in gnosis, as they are throughout biblical tradition. Page 162. In their book, Jesus and the Lost Goddess, Timothy Freke and Peter Gandy touch on how the duality of Sophia manifests. In the Gospels, the Virgin Mary and Mary Magdalene represent the higher Sophia and the fallen Sophia. They are called by the same name to emphasize the fact that mythologically they are aspects of the same figure. As in the Sophia myth, The first Mary is a virgin, like Sophia when she was living with her father, and the second is a prostitute who is redeemed by her lover Jesus, like Sophia when lost in the world, page 95. Here we have an image. The caption is God is Wild, from the film God is Wild by Tommy Genesis, and it is by, I'm sorry I'm not familiar with the Roman numerals, but it's Downtown Records. This point is illustrated in the short film God is Wild by Tommy Genesis, as the diva in the video stands between the two pillars, showing both demonic and angelic traits. She is the bridge between both worlds. On her waist is a key representing wisdom, which resembles the sign for female, Venus, or for the womb. Perhaps Sophia even bridges the gap between female and male. This is what we typically think of when the Baphomet is mentioned. One thing that needs to be said when discussing Baphomet is the fact that the famous image of the hermaphroditic Baphomet that was drawn by the French occultist Eliphas Levi wasn't drawn until 500 years after the Templar order had been dissolved. It's very unlikely that Levi's drawing of the Baphomet had anything to do with the Baphomet that the Templars were accused of worshipping. And here is that image of the Baphomet drawn by Eliphas Levi. It was drawn in 1861, and I will continue to read so that I don't delay too much with commentary. The inspiration for the famous drawing of the goat-headed figure is most assuredly the Bible. Levi's drawing of Baphomet appears to incorporate everything that Yahweh told the Israelites to avoid making a graven image of or worshiping. In Deuteronomy chapter 4, scrolling down, take ye therefore good heed unto yourselves, for ye saw no manner of similitude on the day that the Lord spake unto you in Horeb out of the midst of the fire, lest ye corrupt yourselves and make you a graven image, the similitude of any figure, the likeness of male or female, the likeness of any beast that is on the earth, the likeness of any winged fowl that flies in the air, the likeness of any thing that creepeth on the ground, the likeness of any fish that is in the waters beneath the earth. And lest thou lift up thine eyes unto heaven, and when thou seest the sun and the moon and the stars, even all the host of heaven, shouldest be driven to worship them and serve them. Deuteronomy 4 verse 15 through 19. This drawing might not have anything to do with the original Baphomet at all, which at the time was believed to be the head of a bearded man. But as Alan Butler says in The Goddess, the Grail, and the Lodge, this head may also have related John the Baptist, for whom the Templars had special reverence. Even more likely is the suggestion that the bearded head could have represented the Green Man. Effigies of the Green Man are to be seen in many Gothic churches and cathedrals. Few historians now doubt that the Green Man is a hangover from the days of nature worship and, in particular, worship of the goddess. Page 222. Scrolling down. The Templars' reverence for John the Baptist is likely due to his similarity to the Green Man, a god of nature. John dwelled in the wilderness, wearing camel hair and eating locusts and wild honey. John the Baptist was beheaded, and the Green Man is typically depicted as a head with no body. It's not hard to see how the Templars made the connection. Alan Butler reveals what the truth about the Baphomet is when the name is put through a substitution cipher as first discovered by the British Bible scholar Dr. Hugh Schonfield. In all probability, the name Baphomet had nothing to do with the mysterious bearded head of the Templars, and the confusion may have been due to the ineptitude on the part of Philip IV's interrogators. However, the word was still of a tremendous importance to the Templars, because once it has gone through the mill of the Atbash cipher, Baphomet comes out as Sophia. That is on page 222 through and 223. Scrolling down. The image of Baphomet drawn by Eliphaz Levi was evidently his own creation, using Deuteronomy 4 verse 15 through 19 as his inspiration. I can't rule out that he did know that Baphomet was a code word for Sophia, or wisdom, somehow, but the revelation of the true meaning of Baphomet makes so much more sense because the Templars were famously Marianists, as Alan Butler explains. The Templars were dedicated to the Virgin Mary, for whom they showed what amounted to an obsession. This had also been true of their founder, Saint Bernard of Clairvaux. Bernard had deliberately manipulated the Catholic Church of his day to virtually deify Mary. The Templar order was accused of worshipping Baphomet, which we know is a code word and which really means Sophia. Sophia in turn is early Christian speak for the Holy Spirit, often represented as a dove. The dove has represented the goddess for thousands of years. It seems, next page, more and more likely that the true religious imperatives of the Templars meant that, in 14th century Christian terms, they were guilty as charged. Page 223. The Queen of Heaven, Baphomet, was the goddess that the Templars worshipped in the form of the two Marys of duality, Mary, the Virgin Mother of Jesus, and Mary Magdalene, out of whom Jesus Christ cast 7 devils. Sophia was the Holy Grail. It wasn't an actual cup. The Grail is a reference to the womb. This image here is titled, I gotta zoom out one more time. That was a little bit too small. Okay. The Damsel of the Saint Grail, or the Damsel of the Holy Grail, by Dante Gabriel Rossetti, 1874. The Ankh symbol, the chalice or grail, symbolizes the source of life. And being that the tomb is the womb of Mother Earth, these symbols also represent spiritual rebirth, or literal death and resurrection. The Holy Grail in the Catholic ceremonies represents the womb of the Virgin Mary. It's not likely a confession that any priest will make, but as observers we can clearly see with our own eyes that Mary holds a place in the Trinity next to God and His Son. In the very detailed book, Freemasonry, Rituals, Symbols, and History of the Secret Society, Mark Stavish explains what Mary represents in the minds of Freemasons, comparing her to geometry. Going down. It is interesting to note that when the building phase occurred, many, if not all, the great cathedrals, and to a fair extent the smaller ones as well, were dedicated to Our Lady, or the Virgin Mary, the Mother of Jesus Christ. Herein we see the material world giving birth or expression to divine ideals, taking them from the abstract and making them tangible, concrete, living. Page 88. It is through Mary that the Word is made flesh, and through geometry the ideal becomes form. The lost word that each master mason seeks is the power of creation itself. Mary is the wisdom seat, the foundation of all creation in the medieval mind, and the Word is her offspring. The power of creation is found in wisdom. Page 105. Here we have an image of the chalice or holy grail inside of a sacred feminine diamond. As Marx said, geometry is personified by a goddess. Through geometry, ideas can be given form in the material world. Goddesses personify a lot of concepts in Freemasonry. It underlines the point that the divine feminine, or Lucifer, is the source of enlightenment. Knowing that geometry is a spirit in Freemasonry, I believe it's fitting to put a capital G on the word to emphasize that and help us to remember it. In a dictionary of Freemasonry, Robert McCoy explains the connection of the letter G to geometry and how important it is. He gives us good reasons to believe that the letter G truly does stand for geometry. The letter G is deservedly regarded as one of the most sacred Masonic emblems. This symbol proves that Freemasonry always prosecuted its labors with reference to the grand ideas of infinity and eternity by the letter G, which conveyed to the minds of the brethren at the time the idea of God and that of geometry. It bound heaven to the earth, the divine to the human, the infinite to the finite. Page 152. The letter G cannot allude to the name of God alone in the German lodges, or else it could not be found in the situation in foreign lodges. It has a closer affinity to geometry, which is so necessary to an architect, and geometrical certainty and truth is everywhere necessary. 519 on page 519. Among the mathematical sciences, geometry is the one which has the most especial reference to architecture, and we can, therefore, under the name of geometry, understand the whole art of Freemasonry. In Anderson's Book of Constitutions, Freemasonry is frequently called geometry, and of the latter he saith that the whole being of the order is comprehended in it. Freemasons therefore ought to make themselves intimately acquainted with geometry. It is not absolutely necessary to be able to delineate geometrical figures, but it is necessary to be able to deduce all our actions, works, or resolutions from geometrical principles. Page 519 and 520. Scrolling down. As McCoy said, the letter G represents something that bounds heaven to earth. Mark Stavish said that something was geometry. I said that it was the goddess who stands between the two pillars of opposites. Stavish expounds on geometry and also introduces us to the genius of Freemasonry. We often hear of the genius of Freemasonry referred to as she and discussed in anthropomorphic terms, expressing human qualities but on a perfected or archetypal level. This symbol then takes on a deeper connection to both a literal spiritual force protecting Freemasonry and the Gnostic notions of the divine Sophia, or wisdom, the bride of God. Page 75 and 76. So just to reiterate, he said that there is a literal spiritual force protecting Freemasonry. Manly P. Hall also said that there was a great spirit that guided Freemasonry, and he said that Isis was the mother of the mysteries. That would make Isis a name for the genius of Freemasonry too. Mark Stavish called this spirit that protected Freemasonry the divine Sophia. He also says of her, the genius of Freemasonry is the guiding spirit of Freemasonry, and every Mason who seeks to understand its mysteries. Page 89. What we have here, two images. One from the General Manual of Freemasonry on the left, 1883, and the other, the Masonic Esotericism, first third of the 19th century on the right. Okay, scrolling down. The genius of Freemasonry is the wisdom goddess that goes by many names: Sophia, Athena, Shekinah, Shakti, and Isis, to name some. Here is an illustration of the blazing star with the letter G on it. Stavish agrees with McCoy in the following quote, that the Masonic G represents geometry. The G stands for geometry, the most critical field of learning for any educated person, particularly one who would be in the building trades. Page 84. Now Mark reveals that geometry too is essentially the goddess of Freemasonry. Like geometry and wisdom in the form of Sophia before it, the tendency to turn abstract forces and ideals into anthropomorphic images, particularly of a feminine form, suggests pre-Christian sources in classical paganism. One woodcut shows geometry personified as a beautiful woman, complete with the letter G and surrounded by the working tools of the building trade. Page 89. The G is the woman that we see in Masonic art, often weeping over the broken pillar. Whether she is called wisdom, geometry, or the genius of Freemasonry, it's the same goddess, represented by the blazing star, the pentagram. She is Mystery Babylon. While I may not be convinced of what McCoy and Stavish says about the meaning of G being geometry, I don't think they're wrong either. The G is indeed surrounded by the tools that are used to measure the material world. I'm inclined to believe that the G stands for Gaia, the personification of the earth. Gaia is a universally understood name, a universally recognized name that encompasses all the names of other goddesses, including the goddess which personifies geometry, which means measurement of the earth, measurement of earth. Here is an image of the Masonic Register, symbolic history of F and AM from 1876. In this image, we of course see Isis, the woman, weeping over the broken pillar as Father Time braids her hair, or Death braids her hair. Remember, her steps go down to death. As the world soul, or anima mundi, Gaia is the expression of the force in the material world. She is the face of God, or presence of God. As the bridge between worlds, she is the G between the compass and square, in the sacred feminine diamond. The G is sometimes replaced by a 5-pointed star. So the Masonic square and compass on the left, and the anima mundi, or the world soul, on the right. On Masonic tracing boards, you will notice Jacob's ladder, or a stairway to heaven, and typically the triple goddesses are on that ladder. Scroll down to see. First degree tracing board by Josiah Bowring, 1819. This is merely a cropped image, or a zoomed in and cropped image of that Masonic tracing board. But note the things that you will see in this image. One of the women is the Virgin, one of them is the Mother, and one is the old woman, Fate or Fortuna. One has a book on her lap where a child would sit. That book represents the Word. The Word is her seed. Her reading a book could also show that she is wisdom. The key a symbol for wisdom, is tied to the ladder. The virgin is holding an anchor to show that she cannot be moved. She is bound to the ladder, just as the anima mundi is chained between heaven and earth. These goddesses that are venerated in Freemasonry have also been represented in various fairy tales. Beauty, or Belle, and the story Beauty and the Beast is symbolic of Freemasonry or the mysteries. She's the goddess of Freemasonry who raises man, who is in his lowest beastly estate, to a higher evolved form. As the rough-cut stone becomes the smooth and defined cube on the Masonic tracing board, Beauty changes the beast into a man. Her love for books also identifies her as a wisdom goddess. I'm going to scroll down here. And the rose is present as a symbol of Venus in the mysteries. Zoom out a little bit. So this is Beauty from Beaumont's Beauty and the Beast, 1756. Okay, I'm having trouble zooming to the right ratio now, but okay. Next page. As with Beauty, I've noticed that some other names from fairy tales are code words for Lucifer, such as Alice from Alice in Wonderland. The journey down the rabbit hole is used as a metaphor for initiation into the mysteries. The rabbit from the story is a sacred animal and fertility symbol long associated with Ishtar. Alice, having made her journey into the mysteries and confronted the passionate Scarlet Queen in her own heart, emerges as a wisdom goddess. The Wicked Witch, or Old Crone, in stories such as Snow White, is the goddess of fate called Fortuna. She is winter and death battling the young and fertile queen of the earth. Also called Lady Luck or Lady Lux. In Destiny, she is there at the end of the ladder, the end of life, on the Masonic tracing board. In Ancient Mirrors of Womanhood, Merlin Stone sheds some light on other identities of Lady Luck. Celtic memories of the great Queen Morgan also lingered in the Italian lands, where tales were once told of Fata Morgana, who lived beneath the waters of a lake. But Boiardo wrote that the powerful Fata Morgana was but another name for the holy goddess Fortuna, she whose shrines once graced Etruscan towns, where omens of the future bubbled forth from underground springs. And there are those who say that Fata and Fortuna were but other names for the three who were known as the Fates. Page 61. As the moon and serpent represent death and rebirth, so does the goddess. Dion Fortune, author of the mystical Kabbalah, explains the duality assigned to the third Sephirah in Kabbalah, called Binah. The Great Mother aspect and the Saturn aspect, for both these attributions are given to Binah. She is the mighty mother of all living, and she is also the death principle, for the giver of life and form is also the giver of death, for form must die when its use is outworn. Upon the planes for form, death and birth are two sides of the same coin. The mother aspect of Binah finds expression in the title Mara, the sea, which is given to her. It is a curious fact that Venus Aphrodite is represented as being born from the sea foam, and the Virgin Mary is called by Catholics Stella Maris, or Star of the Sea. The word Mara, which is the root of Mary, also means bitter, and the spiritual experience attributed to Binah is the vision of sorrow, a vision which calls to mind the picture of the Virgin weeping at the foot of the cross, her heart pierced by 7 swords. Page 144. As Dion Fortune said, she is the mighty mother of all living. She is also the death principle. The tomb is the womb of Mother Earth. Rebirth is a focal point in the mysteries because initiates understand the axiom, as the Bible says in 1 Corinthians 15:36, that which thou sowest is not quickened except it die. Indeed, it was by one man's sin, Adam's sin, that death came into the world. But the woman, who was called Eve because she was the mother of all living, was the giver of death. And here we have here in this image the goddess and her serpent in Eden. Public domain, artist unknown. And Eve is persuading Adam in the background to eat of the forbidden fruit. And I'm not sure how well you can see these images. They're pretty old. And you have the goddess here, her serpent there with the fruit in its mouth. So that was chapter 17. The next chapter is chapter 18. Babylon is fallen, is fallen. In the time of the end, I believe there will be a deconstruction of the three main religions based on the Bible. Judaism, Christianity, and Islam as institutions will be manipulated into acting as destructive forces, each convinced of their own righteousness that will force people to either remain faithful to them or abandon them. It would also be widely believed that these religions were built on lies, and for the most part they were. Babylon has controlled what the world knows as Christianity since Constantine had his supposed conversion experience. All of these major religions are under her control, and once the restrainer is removed, 2 Thessalonians 2:7, Lucifer will make her big move to put herself back on top as the supreme deity. It's the goddess who will unite all the religions of the world under three key principles. Scrolling down here. Number 1. God is one with creation, meaning the force is in everyone and everything. Number 2. Creation is sacred, meaning Gaia becomes the face of God. Number 3. YHWH, the God of the Old Testament, is Satan, and Jesus Christ is just a Messiah, not the Messiah. There will be some slight variations in how this list is expressed, but for the most part, these will be the key points of agreement. Gaia will be present under one or more names. Mary, Sophia, Shekinah, or Shakti, Kali. She will be the bridge between religions and the bridge between God and man. As Thomas Schlipfinger explains in Sophia Maria, understanding Sophia as the link between the world's religious traditions points to the significance of their relationship. She is the world soul and the mother of creation, the source of all wisdom teaching, and the inspiration behind conceptions of the divine or feminine divine, and the mediating link to universal salvation through Jesus Christ. She is the mother, and the world traditions are her children. She binds them together into one family. Page 371. One recurring theme that you may notice is the presence of a fallen, exiled, or lost female spirit or goddess. In Gnosticism, Sophia fell from the pleroma, or the fullness, the spiritual realm where the emanations of God, known as aeons, dwell. Aeons are incorrectly called angels by Gnostic so-called Christians. Scrolling to the next page. Here we have an image of a Masonic art, of course. Let me scroll up, let me zoom out. The caption is Masonic chart with code and Prayer, published by Humphreys, 1846. Without getting into too much commentary, I just wanted to show again the importance of the divine feminine, who by now, if you have watched previous chapters, you know is Lucifer. Going down to the next page. Sophia saw the Father Spirit and desired to create like him. She wanted to be like the Most High. In her ambition, she tried to create from herself, and she caused herself to fall out of the higher and spiritual realm. Her spirit became the world soul, or anima mundi, also known as Gaia. She is the fallen and lost light. A similar fate happens to Shekinah in Kabbalistic Judaism, as Deanne Loper lays out. The female Shekinah, now separated from the masculine, descends into exile, destroying the dream of God. The very core of reality is God's shattered dream, waiting for us to pick up the pieces of the divine sparks. It is humankind, not the angels, who can pick it up and reveal it. That the infinite light, Shekinah, is everywhere is the axiom of the Kabbalah, held captive within every object, even within evil itself. 51, page 51. Stephen Heller, author of Gnosticism, A New Light on the Ancient Tradition of Inner Knowing, explains the role that Sophia played in the Garden of Eden. The hypostasis of the archons informs us that not only Eve but also the serpent was inspired and guided by the divine Sophia. Sophia allowed her wisdom to enter the serpent, who thereby became a teacher and then taught Adam and Eve about their true source. They came to understand that they were not lowly beings created by the demiurge, in this case the creator in the Genesis story, but rather that their spiritual selves had originated beyond this world in the fullness of the ultimate Godhead. Page 28 and 29. In the hypostasis of the archon, Sophia's spirit is in both Eve and the serpent at different times, and not only them but also the tree. The woman of spirit came to him and spoke with him, saying, Rise, Adam. And when he saw her, he said, It is you who have given me life. You will be called Mother of the Living, for she is my mother. She is the physician and the woman, and she has given birth. The princes said to one another, Come, let us sow our seed in her. And they pursued her. And she laughed at them for their foolishness and blindness. In their clutches she became a tree. Then the female spiritual presence came in the form of the snake, the instructor, and it taught them, saying, What did he say to you? Was it, next page, From every tree in the garden shall you eat, but from the tree of recognizing evil and good do not eat? The woman of flesh, Eve, said, Not only did he say, Don't eat, but even don't touch it, for the day you eat from it, you will surely die. The snake, the instructor, said, It is not the case that you will surely die, for out of jealousy he said this to you. Rather, your eyes will open, and you will be like gods, recognizing evil and good. And the female instructing power was taken away from the snake, and she left it behind, merely a thing of the earth. As I have explained already, the serpent has been a symbol of the goddess from the time when there were no male pagan gods worshipped on the earth. The serpent, as a symbol for wisdom, is the avatar of the wisdom goddess Sophia. They are forever intertwined. While there are some differences in narratives, the general Gnostic idea is that Sophia is the mother of the material world. As Stephen A. Heller writes of Sophia, after having fallen from the higher realm, the pleroma, among the higher spiritual beings called aeons. I'm going to scroll down here. The lower Sophia, Achamoth, an anagram of Chokmah, the Hebrew name for wisdom, struggles in her alienated condition. She grieves and rages. She sorrows and longs for her original estate. In her distress, she manifests or emanates powers that eventually condense into the building blocks of the material universe. She also produces a hybrid form of consciousness, a lion-headed monstrous being who had become the demiurge, YHWH, also known as Yaldabaoth, Saklas, and Samael, the artificer of the created world, page 40. In Gnosticism, Sophia is an emanation of God. Think of an emanation as a branch of a tree. It's not the tree trunk who is God, but it's still the tree. Sophia falls and the divinity within her becomes the divine spark that is in the material world, and consequently the demiurge, YHWH, that she gave birth to. While some narratives say that Sophia became the earth, others say that her son, YHWH, made the earth using Sophia's power that was within him. When her son, the demiurge, breathed into Adam, and after forming him in the garden, he inadvertently breathed Sophia's divine spark into him. Sophia, through the serpent, tried to reveal to Adam and Eve their true divine nature. Scrolling down, the demiurge was not happy about that. John Lash, a Gnostic teacher who has a strong disdain for the truth of the Bible, wrote in his book, Not in His Image, "The demiurge of the Old Testament is an arrogant, demented pretender who claims that humans are made in his image. These 4 words are the corporate," rolling down, "motto of patriarchy, branded on the human soul. Made in his image signifies the total enslavement of humanity to an alien, off-planet agenda." Page 258. Scrolling out here, we see the divine feminine, Sophia, Isis, whatever you prefer to call her, Lucy, Lucifer, in between as the bridge between God and man. The caption says, Macrocosm and Microcosm by Tobias Schultz, 1654. This shows the goddess as the mediator between heaven and earth, God and man, and the infinite and the finite. Scrolling down. Christians or believers in the Bible who have already been compromised by unknowingly accepting Gnostic doctrine from wolves in sheep's clothing are in danger of completely falling in line with the unification of the faiths. Gnostic teachers claim that humans were once spiritual beings of light, or angels, to put it in biblical terms, and that our spirits got brought down from heaven by the demiurge and trapped in the darkness of flesh bodies. But while they say it was Satan who did it, the Gnostic text that they are teaching from identifies Satan as the God of the Bible, Yahweh. In Isis Unveiled, Blavatsky lays out the biblical faith in the mind of a theosophist. I'm going to scroll down. The theology of Christendom has been rubbed threadbare by the most serious minds of the day. It is found to be, on the whole, subversive rather than promotive of spirituality and good morals. Instead of expounding the rules of divine law and justice, it teaches but itself. In place of an ever-living deity, it preaches the evil one and makes him indistinguishable from God himself. Lead us not into temptation is the aspiration of Christians. Who then is the tempter? Satan? No, the prayer is not addressed to him. It is the Bible God of Israel. Our examination of the multitudinous religious faiths that mankind, early and late, have professed most assuredly indicates that they have all been derived from one primitive source. It would seem as if they were all but different modes of expressing the yearning of the imprisoned soul, of the imprisoned human soul, for intercourse with supernal spheres. Page 535. Rolling down. Aldous Huxley, in A Perennial Philosophy, suggests that the fall in the Garden of Eden was not a violation of God's commandment to not eat from the forbidden tree, but the fall was a passage from the spiritual world into the material world of flesh bodies, falling from the infinite to the finite. To be adequate to our experience, the Genesis myth would have to be modified. It would have to make clear that creation, the incomprehensible passage from the unmanifested one into the manifest multiplicity of nature, from eternity into time, is not merely the prelude and necessary condition of the fall. To some extent, it is the fall. Page 182. Deanne Loper shares the similar Kabbalistic viewpoint on this, reinforcing that a separation from the divine source or the spiritual world is the true understanding of the fall. She says, in Kabbalah, the sin of Adam is not attributed to his disobedience to God and eating from the tree of knowledge of good and evil, but is the premature separation of the unity of the Sephiroth tree. Page 50. Scrolling down. Elaine Pagels, who wrote the Gnostic Gospels, spins the narrative that the early followers of the Way, or Christians, were in reality Gnostics. Like the New Agers, who would say that Jesus Christ, Yahushua, was just another teacher or prophet, Elaine says that there can be many Christs. Whoever achieves gnosis becomes no longer a Christian but a Christ. We can see then that such Gnosticism was more than a protest movement against Orthodox Christianity, or more than a protest movement against Orthodox Christianity. Gnosticism also included a religious perspective that implicitly opposed the development of the kind of institution that became the early Catholic Church. Those who expected to become Christ themselves were not likely to recognize the institutional structures of the Church. From page 134. While I am not a member of the Catholic Church and I am against the institution of it, that doesn't mean I should turn to the opposite extreme and join the Luciferian Gnostics. Jesus Christ warned us about these type of deceivers. Scroll it down. And as he sat upon the Mount of Olives, the disciples came unto him privately, saying, Tell us, when shall these things be? And what shall be the sign of thy coming, and of the end of the world? And Jesus answered and said unto them, Take heed that no man deceive you. For many shall come in my name, saying, I am Christ, and shall deceive many. Matthew 24, verse 3-4. Another common ground with these many religions is that they aim to unite all of humanity. Only the true biblical God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob calls for his children, Israelite and Gentile, to come out from the rest of the world and be separate. The world's mantra is, we're all connected. Led Zeppelin plays their instruments like the Pied Piper crying, all is one, one is all, in their song, Stairway to Heaven. They sing of a lady we all know who shines white light and wants to show that everything still turns to gold. That lady is Lucifer. She is the alma mater or virgin mother. She's the, scrolling down, girl with the sun in her eyes that the Beatles sang about in their song, Lucy in the Sky with Diamonds. You can find this lawless woman Lucy in Hollywood, where they sell Californication. The mystery religion, the goddess religion, that was driven underground has been revitalized in the New Age and Gnostic doctrines that are being spread in books, through online teachers, and pushed by Hollywood and the entertainment industry. Because we have not been taught who Lucifer truly is, she has been able to operate with little resistance. But we should have known who is as subtle as a serpent but a woman. It's not about, scrolling down, strength, as Proverbs 7 verse 26-27 tells us. For she has cast down many wounded, yea, many strong men have been slain by her. No, I am not saying that women in general are evil. Please don't take the wrong message away from this book. I am only pointing out that women, by their nature, are more like the serpent. Merriam-Webster defines subtle as delicate, elusive, and difficult to understand or perceive. As the Bible warns us of the strange woman, her ways are movable, that thou canst not know them. Proverbs chapter 5 verse 6. The harlot is subtle of heart. Proverbs 7:10. The entertainment industry, through the divas, the high priestesses, as a host body, are literally performing rituals in which Mystery Babylon is being worshipped. This is what the Scarlet Woman or the Lady in Red comes down to. Now, the diva, meaning goddess, embodies Lucifer on earth. Worshipping her leads you to becoming drunken by the spirit of whoredoms. So here we have an image of Lilith by Kenyon Cox from 1891. And that is chapter 18. Sorry, I lose count. There's one chapter left. Chapter 19, King of Kings, Lord of Lords. And I saw heaven opened, and behold, a white horse, and he that sat upon him was called Faithful and True, and in righteousness he doth judge and make war. His eyes were as a flame of fire, and on his head were many crowns, and he had a name written, that no man knew but he himself. And he was clothed with a vesture dipped in blood, and his name is called the Word of God. And the armies which were in heaven followed him upon white horses, clothed in fine linen, white and clean. And out of his mouth goeth a sharp sword, that with it he should smite the nations. And he shall rule them with a rod of iron. And he treadeth the winepress of the fierceness and wrath of Almighty God. And he hath on his vesture and on his thigh a name written, King of Kings and Lord of Lords. Revelation chapter 19 verse 11 through 16. Rolling down. I praise my Father in heaven for allowing me to know him and his Son Jesus Christ. Over 10 years ago, I was well on my way to unknowingly embracing the goddess religion. Even though I grew up going to church, I became agnostic when I reached my 20s. I joined the Navy in my last year of high school and shipped off only 6 days after I graduated. I got to travel the world, and during my travels I saw the other religions that existed with my own eyes. During those times, especially when I was stationed in Japan, I thought, they can't all be wrong. Maybe God reveals himself to different people in different forms. Nobody had to tell me that. I didn't read it in a book. My mind automatically went there on its own. I would have easily ended up worshiping at the altar of Mother Nature, had the Most High turned me over to a reprobate mind. Praise be to Yah Almighty, because he didn't let me go. He kept me through my foolishness, and even when I rode my car while speeding and could have died while my wife was pregnant with our first child. He was merciful to me. I was awakened from my sleep by the Most High in 2013 when I came across YouTube videos showing how close we were to the return of Jesus Christ. Those videos shook me awake. I repented for my wickedness and turned my heart back to him. Rolling down. I distinctly remember saying to my Father in heaven, I made a big mistake. He began a work in me back then that is continuing today. Day by day I am being conformed to the glorious image of his Son, Jesus Christ. My journey towards writing this book began, if I remember correctly, in 2014. That's when I asked my Father Yahweh in heaven to help me understand the book of Revelation because I was confused about the timing of the gathering, scrolling down, to Christ, what most know of as the rapture. Around that time, I began to question if the Jezebel spirit was a real thing and if it was in the Bible. I believed that if it was real, it would be there. I asked Yah to guide me as I began studying the Bible to find the truth. I had no idea I would end up here right now writing a book to tell the world that the Jezebel spirit is Lucifer and that Lucifer is, in truth, a female spirit. Here we have an image of the Queen of Heaven. She's called, the caption for this is Column of the Immaculate Conception in Rome. That is an impressive column if you've seen it. Mary towers high above many other important figures, or who are supposedly those figures in from the Bible, and she is high and lifted up above all these other people from the Bible. Rolling down to the next page. What I thought I saw back then, by that time in early 2015, was unsettling, and I didn't really want to just come out and tell people about it. But I was told by the pastor of a church that I was attending at the time that the Most High gave him a word for me. There were two things, he said. I was told to pray for my sister, and I was told that I should stop sitting on what I had, to paraphrase a little because I don't remember the exact words. I didn't know if I believed he was right or not, but I kept the words in my heart. Not long after that, I was informed that my grandmother who raised me went into hospice. I traveled across the country to see her with my sister, and we got to see our grandmother one last time and tell her that we loved her before she passed away. When I returned home, I thought about what I was told. I just remember thinking, okay, I'm going to do this, and I'm going to start telling people. I couldn't think of anything else that the pastor's words could have been about. I uploaded my first video about the Queen of Heaven in the summer of 2015. After that, I started a YouTube channel that would be dedicated to this subject called Daylight Riders. About a year or so after that, I started a second one called Babylon Watch. Scrolling down. For the next 8 years, going on 9 now to be honest, I was seeking truth and praying to the Most High with fear and trembling. I can't count the number of times that I have pleaded with him that he would remove far from me vanity and lies and lead me into all truth by his Holy Spirit. I have seen so much over the years that has left me dumbfounded. I've often asked, how can it be that no one else has seen this? It's far more than I could put into a book. In fact, I'm still rediscovering things that I once knew but forgot because there's so much out there. In Nashville, Tennessee, there stands a reconstruction of the Parthenon from Athens, Greece. When I first saw pictures of the 42-foot or 12.8 meter statue of Athena inside it, I thought to myself, hey, where's all the outrage from Christians? Why did no one tell me about it? Why did I have to discover it on my own? But then why was I surprised? The statue of Libertas has been standing in New York Harbor for over a century. The goddess is on the back of our money. She's on top of the Capitol building. She's outside the courthouses with a blindfold and a pair of scales. Babylon has so swamped us with so much goddess imagery that we don't even register it anymore. There were many times when I didn't want to see and know anything about this, and I wanted to run away. Did I have doubts? Absolutely. When I said I was in fear and trembling, I meant it. I am a man who barely got passing grades in high school, and then I dropped out of community college after wasting the money that I got from college for the Navy. Got for college from the Navy. Who was I to challenge what the Bible scholars taught about Lucifer for centuries, if not longer? I mean it when I tell you, really now, that there were times when I wished that I had never looked into this matter. But despite those difficult inner struggles, I'm here on this day and I know what I know. I never imagined that I would be writing a book about anything with my level of education. To the Most High God, Yahweh, be the praise and glory for helping me to do it. My prayer is that I have been faithful with what Yah has given me. At the end of the day, that is all that matters. I ask that you take everything that I have presented in this book to the Most High in prayer. Let Yah be true and every man a liar. Thank you for taking the time to read this book. I pray that it will be a blessing to you. To those who do the will of our Father in heaven, may the grace of our Lord and Savior Jesus Christ, Yahweh Shai, be with you. That was Mystery Babylon Unveiled, Lucifer, the Queen of Heaven. Thank you for reading with me and sticking with me through this series. Mystery Babylon Unveiled, Lucifer, the Queen of Heaven, brings to light Bible scriptures which prove that the one known as Satan, the devil, and Lucifer is in fact a woman. It reveals how she is identified in the Bible as the Queen of Heaven and the great whore of Babylon. This book also brings forth incontrovertible historic evidence confirming that Lucifer was worshipped in the earliest recorded history as the Great Mother Goddess, and that she is still worshipped as such within the halls of secret societies today. Discover where the world's worship of the goddess began and where it is hidden within the pages of this book. Mystery Babylon Unveiled, Lucifer, the Queen of Heaven is available in paperback and ebook at all online sellers. If your local bookstore or library doesn't carry this book, please request it. By doing so, you will help get the book onto more shelves. Mystery Babylon Unveiled, Lucifer, the Queen of Heaven contains essential knowledge that all Christians should take hold of. It is an insightful and profound revealing of one of the greatest mysteries in the world.